So were you ever sitting in rooms doing deals with people whose names we know that you can tell stories about?
Usually when you're sitting in a room doing a deal, those people aren't in the room.
They're not.
They don't want to be in the room when you're doing their deal. They want to be out of the room being an artist, and they want you in the room, hurting and killing people. And they don't want their hands, they don't want a part of that, right? They want to know you're doing that, but they don't want to be seen as the instrument of that.
Yeah.
And it's important. The role of an agent is very important, because once everybody hits each other, beats each other up, and the deal's done, now you have to collaborate as artists and executive. You have to have a positive, productive relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So our job is to mediate that process so that nobody gets so upset that they can't then work together. So when I ask for something outrageous and they say, "Are you kidding me? Your client's last 3 movies have been a bomb. Why would we ever pay him this? Da, 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 da." And then I go back to the artist and report, well, they're not sure they see it quite the way you do, but they're so excited to have you on the project. So we got to figure, you have to create a middle where everybody can come together and work together.
You're like a divorce attorney before the divorce.
Yes.
But they're going to come back together.
Yes.
And they need to not know what they said.
They need, you're trying to mediate people coming together as opposed to breaking apart.
So what's the secret to doing incredible deals? I mean, I've obviously talked to lots of different people about you. I was talking to Scooter Braun last night, and He was like, he's a great guy. And I was like, that's interesting, because not that many people say that about each other. But he also said you were an incredible deal maker. So I was curious, when you come into a deal, how are you prepping? What are you thinking? What's the secret to doing great deals?
I mean, I think the secret to doing great deals is having great clients. It really makes it easy, right? That, wow, this is an undeniable talent and an undeniable opportunity, and it's exactly right. But you also have to understand who the buyer is, what their circumstance is, what their level of need is. And to me, it's about how do we create an environment where we're going to make a great deal for the client who's going to be super happy. The buyer's going to feel good about what we got, and then they're going to be able to move forward and do something great together.
Yeah.
And different people have different theories. To me, it's I think it's important to understand both sides and to kind of leave everyone feeling okay. Once in a while, that's not what happens. Once in a while, you have to take it all the way and make everybody very uncomfortable. And if you have to do that, you have to do that sometimes.
Yeah. Do you have something that you do in every deal? I remember one of my mentors at Goldman, he was like, this was old school. I don't know if this is more lore than reality, but he was really big on, I love putting a ton of water on the conference table, all different types. And I'm always trying to get them to drink a ton because they don't really like to leave the room when we're getting a deal done. So he's like, so his thing was make them uncomfortable. So they're having to go to the bathroom all the time, break their thinking, whatever, a little maniacal, but I thought it was fun. I'm like, what a fun, weird story about doing deals.
No, I don't have any tricks. I don't make the room really hot or make the room really cold or wear a funny outfit. I don't do any of that.
You don't do any of that.
Really, to me, so much of what happens in a deal happens before the deal, right? Mm-hmm. It's everything that happens before the deal, so that the client, so that they're really, really excited to be and the client really understands the circumstances, and the table set so we're not so at least we have some mutual understanding of where we need to be. If the movie's a $50 million movie and the client's normal deal is $25 million, is it reasonable to expect they're going to get paid $25 million to do this movie? Maybe not. And it's not going to be, can you make a great movie if half of the budget's going to one person? Maybe not. We got to understand that. Then the other side of the coin is the buyer understands that normally the client gets $25 million, but they can't afford to pay him this. So the expectation in terms of ownership on the back end, and how are we going to make up for this? Because we have to acknowledge there's a gap that has to be filled in another way. And how are we going to fill that gap? So both sides have to kind of understand sort of the ground, the groundwork upon which we're going to build this deal on.
Yeah. So it's almost like a pound of pre-production is worth 10 of post-production.
Yeah. And if you set everything up in the beginning the right way, usually, I like to say, usually deals are kind of done before you actually get in the room. And that doesn't mean that everybody has to do a little screaming and shouting, because everybody does. The studio, the lawyer ends up going, I don't care what they said in the production side. We never do this, and we're never going to do this. And And the other side is the client says, I know, but we got to kill it. Okay.
So is it hard to get you riled up because you're so used to this?
I used to get so riled up. Oh my God. I used to be a lunatic.
Really?
Yes.
Like
screaming, threatening. I'm going to come over there. You better tell the guard at the gate to not let me in, because if I get it, craziness.
I aspire to have a little bit of that. I'm way too calm. It's pretty hard to get me riled up, but I aspire to yell at some point.
No, I used to really get too riled up, and I used to be, I'd be tough on my colleagues, and I'd be tough on the buyers, and I was just so, I was sarcastic and nasty, and people call and say, oh, we have this project and da, 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 da. I say, that's the worst project I've ever heard. I would never let any of my clients do that.
Wow. What changed? Now you seem so nice.
It felt lousy to be that way all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense. One thing I wanted to talk about is, I loved, what else I like about agents that I aspire to? Maybe people listening will be the same. I feel like, it's a normal situation where, in life, especially for women, somebody might say something to you. It's not very nice. And you wish you had an Ari from Entourage level response, or now I'm going to say a Jeremy response. But you don't. And you're quiet and you're thinking for hours later about what you should have said to the person and next time I'm going to get them, And so I'm kind of curious, what do you do when you're in those moments? How do you have a smart response? Is there do you take a second and then you retort? Is there any sort of process to you for standing up to yourself? You seem very good at standing up for yourself.
Yeah. Sadly, I was all to me, the cost of being acerbic was worth it, because if you made a really funny, nasty comeback, it was worth it. But then over time, you realize, wow, that makes people. I still, believe me, my wife's like, oh yeah, sure. I am just always with the, boom. And I think I'm pretty good at it. And my wife says to me, she'll say, oh, so-and-so said this to me. And you know what I said? Da, da, da. I said, you said that? She goes, no, I didn't say it, but I really wanted to.
That's me inside.
If you were there, you would have said it. So I don't know. I have a natural, some bit
Affinity.
of it.
So next time
it comes quickly.
I'm just going to text you and be like, what should I say? Give it to me really fast.
Yeah.
There was one that I really liked, which I can't remember who was interviewing, Ari Emanuel, I think it was, but and they basically were like, are you going to buy UTA?
Right.
And Ari was like, nah, we don't need them. And then someone interviews you and says, hey, this is what Ari says.
Yeah.
And you go, oh no, that's because, of course we don't fit their profile because we're profitable.
Exactly.
Which I loved.
That was good.
That was a great line.
That was
a good example.
Yeah.
And I was curious, in those instances, what happens afterwards? Are you guys then having to go do a deal?
No. I mean, he does his thing. I do my thing. We see both members of the same golf course. We see each other there all the time. Sometimes we say hello to each other. Sometimes we ignore each other. I don't know what the reasoning is for when we ignore and when we see. It's just the way it is. And it's the way it's been for 20 plus years.
God, that's incredible. I love that. And it doesn't seem to bother you at all.
No, it's funny.
It's funny.
Yeah.
Maybe is that part of the joke? It's all a game.
It's not all a game. A lot of it's really serious, but the stuff around it, you can't take it too seriously. If you do, you're going to spend too much time thinking about it.
Yeah. Somebody was talking to me the other day about business and they were like, what have you learned? I'm like, I don't have learned very much, except if you take it too seriously, it'll kill you. And so if you don't laugh, you won't make it.
Or it just even won't kill you. It just make you feel not good. And then going back to what we talked about at the beginning is what was I upset about last Tuesday? Today's Tuesday. What was I upset about last Tuesday? What was I worried about last Tuesday? What was I wanting to get even for last Tuesday? I can't possibly begin to remember.
Yeah.
So it probably wasn't that big a deal.
I think that's also made you interesting because I've heard from other people, when M. Night Shyamalan was going through some tough times. And he's, I think very many people would say he's a genius and has created incredible things. But you were one of the people who supposedly stood with him through all of that.
I did.
And many people don't stand by people when it doesn't immediately benefit them.
Right.
And so I was curious for you, what are those moments like where, you have to stand up for other people? And how do you decide, what to do in those moments?
Well, that's, a big part of doing what we do is standing up for other people. But, in the case of artists, they're so vulnerable out there and don't want to be vulnerable. And, they want to feel like somebody is trying to, stand up for them. And by the way, I stood up for Knight, and we had an incredible relationship. He made some great movies while we were together. He made one or two that weren't great. He fired me, and, we got together. He actually came over to my house. I had this really nice house, and he came over to see me, and he said, da, 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 da. And I said, you know what, man, we're good. We had an incredible run. I made a lot of money. I have a beautiful house that you were a big part of me having. And I have nothing but respect and best wishes for you. And if you can hold that, you're going to have a much nicer ride in business, because bad stuff's going to happen.
Yeah. I heard a line in business, which is that most problems are never a how problem. They're always a who problem. And so you might lose a client or bet on a bad partner or have a bad employee.
I've done all of those things.
Do you think that's true? Are most of the problems a person that you choose as opposed to a decision that you make? And how do you decide who to be loyal to or who to choose?
I think there are probably all kinds of problems. There are probably other kinds of problems. But yeah, the people, especially in a people business, the people that you bet on, the companies you acquire based on the people who run them, are going to be a big part of the wins and the losses. And I've, I bought companies with amazing leaders, and they've grown into great businesses and great parts of our thing. I've hired great people who've built great businesses for us. And I've also made a couple of really real mistakes, where I hired someone who I looked the other way based on the story I was telling myself. My belief, one, I can help someone be different. I can manage people to be different. And this is such a great opportunity. I'm going to look the other way at some of the things that don't quite look right. And that was a big mistake. And it came off, it ended up being a big problem and a big drama and blah, 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 blah.
I always feel like it's, my dad also has a line, which is you can't do good deals with bad people. And I'm not sure that's totally true. I think I've done some decent deals with people that I don't at least want to be in bed with, but I got a decent asset out of it. But it does feel like the people part of the business is almost harder than the spreadsheet.
Yeah. And the idea that you can change people, that I bump up against it over and over and over again, because one part of my life, I see people change dramatically. I've been sober for a long time, and I see unbelievable change and growth in people that, get sober. And it's incredible. And they go from, whatever they are, crack addicts, to amazing fathers, amazing business partners, amazing colleagues. And then on the other side, people don't change. I don't know which is true, but I know one thing: people don't change because I want them to. That I'm certain of.
Yeah.
I've learned that lesson over and over and over again.
Yeah. Why do you keep doing it then? Why do you keep betting on people?
Well, I keep betting on, why do I keep betting on people? Why do I keep betting on my ability to change people? Probably has something to do with, ego, what I'm willing to overlook. And I'm much better at it now. Let's just say that. I learned the lesson. The last time was really a key moment.
Are there any red flags? And I know we're kind of going into this one in depth, but I think one of the hardest things when you're running a business, I kind of think most businesses are people businesses. At least they seem like that to me. Mm-hmm. And if you can figure out how to choose better people more consistently that are better for you in the right role, you seem to win more often.
Right.
And almost you could kind of ignore some bad ideas. You could ignore some bad spreadsheets. But if you don't have the right people in the right seats, it doesn't work. And so I'm curious, are there a few red flags where you're you know what? It's not always true, but when I see that, I kind of pay attention. And when I see that green flag, I kind of move forward with people. Do you have those mental frameworks like that?
I don't really have rules like that, because, you see people, because a lot of really good agents are very self-involved, like
Oh,
I
yeah.
want, and they're not necessarily good managers.
Mm.
But the best agency, the best in professional organizations, the best performers tend to get management opportunities. And does that really make sense?
Mm.
And you go, well, it doesn't make sense, but yet that's what ends up happening. And some of them become really, really good managers. So I try not to have hard and fast rules about stuff like that, or, try to put people in boxes just because, people say all the time, oh, the agency business, that's such a terrible business. Everybody's a snake. Well, that's just not true. That's not my experience. And then you can hear people say, oh, lawyers, all lawyers, you can't trust them. Lawyers are terrible. Well, that's not true. Doctors, oh, they're all, terrible egomaniacs. They don't listen. Well, that's not, anytime you try to sort of generalize,
Yep.
I think you're going to be disappointed.